Who are you? What's the Reader's Digest? And what was that first real estate deal like?
So first, thanks for having me, Rob. Awesome to reconnect with you. I feel like we don't do it enough. But then again, I see you more than I do a lot of people that I'm connected. So I always appreciate it. My journey is a one of those crazy game boards that has all of those cards that have you change and tweak and change your path. That's the way that I would describe it now. I'm born and raised in Philly, in South Philly. I went to all the Philadelphia public schools, all the bad public schools. In hindsight, they're much better than a lot of things now. And I worked for the Federal Reserve for 22 years for Philly and for national IT. And in technology, I kind of rose through the ranks. Eventually went back to college. I had like 4 or 5 false starts in college. I'll tell you about my real estate initial false start as well, which was my first deal. So my first deal was when in 2004 was my first venture in real estate. I was still living at my mother's house in Philly. And I said, I got to get out of the house, right? Like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to be able to, find a decent girl, living at home. So I had this great idea to buy a duplex from a buddy of mine. And he had this duplex at 13th and Porter. It was in the middle of the block on 13th Street. And he had the property for, from the 70s. It was his family's property. They converted it into a duplex so he could stay home with his family. His mother was sick at the time, so it wasn't so he didn't have to leave. So I knew it wasn't zoned as a duplex, but I didn't know what the implications of that. Any sophisticated investor or not so sophisticated knows the implication of that now. So I bought this property. My idea is going to live in one unit, rent out the other unit. It just needed cosmetics. In hindsight, it probably needed to be gutted. But I was pretty handy. My first foray into construction was buying a Black & Decker handyman book, which I still have. I bought it when I was 14 years old. I tinkered around the house. I did a lot of work. So my nights and weekends were going to be spent renovating this joint. And that's what I did. I mean, I did everything from... I remember spending 2 days to get a broken tile toothbrush holder out of the wall, right? It drove me nuts.
Ceramic?
Yes, it drove me nuts. But that was like
fortified.
Yes. And
that matching soap dish on the other side of the...
Exactly. And it was broken and glued back together and drove me nuts. This has got to go. But anyway, I spent a year on that property, but a few months into that project, I come to the property and I find one of those big old orange stickers on the door, zoning violation. And because it was a multifamily, not zoned as a multifamily, I'm like, man, what the heck is this? Did some research. It wasn't going to hire any attorneys. I'm very good at learning. If there was one skill that I've mastered, is how to learn, right? Research and how to learn. And so I'm going to figure out how to get through this. Long story short, I went through all the processes I thought that I needed to do to get the zoning changed. The neighbor that was 2 doors away was the secretary of the councilman in the area. No chance of getting that done, right? So I went door to door getting all these signatures. Go up to my zoning hearing and step in front of the judge. He didn't even hear anything. He said denied. Right? As soon as he heard what I had to say, I'm like, what the hell is this? Right? I didn't even get to plead my case. I mean, I was prepared. I had pictures. I had all these signatures. I had all this stuff. Denied. I was, it was crippling, right? I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Now, granted, some time had gone by where the property value had increased because that was during the market boom. Everybody was buying everything. So I've had this property for a year, couldn't do anything with it. So I said, the heck with this. I'm done with it. I'm going to sell the property and get the hell out of the city. So I ended up doing that. I bought the property for like $140,000. I sold it for $180,000. Now, in hindsight, I didn't make any money because all the time that I had it, my holding carrying costs and all that. So I moved to Glen Olden. Okay. I moved out of the city. I had enough of the city. And then that's where I just stayed. I had a townhouse. I bought it at the peak of the market. The bubble burst. I was underwater my mortgage. Fast forward, and 2012, I met Corinne, my now wife. She started working at the Fed. She's a transplant from Los Angeles, moved to Philly on an opera contract, believe it or not. She was a professional musician, she was a professional singer. So we connected because she got a day job working at the Fed. Her parents had been self-employed law firm and had their own school. And so they taught her that, you need to buy an income property. So she was on the hunt to buy a multifamily property. Ended up connecting her with some people that I knew in real estate. Ended up buying a triplex in Francisville, which, anybody who knows the city knows that all of a sudden these neighborhood names just started popping up. None of
Yeah.
this existed when I was a kid. Bought the triplex. I started implementing software to manage it. Uh, Meanwhile, I'm still working at the Fed. She's still working at the Fed. Next thing you know, my father-in-law introduces this concept of syndication. I was like, what the hell? Like, what is that? And I said, because I had access to properties, right? I had somebody saying, oh, you're looking for another multifamily? I'm like, yeah, I'm loving this. Right? I was implementing the software. I had everything automated. We were using Buildium when we first started. Then eventually we switched over to Propertyware. Next thing you know, I'm syndicating deals with friends and family. I'm putting together, I still have the PowerPoint decks that I put together. I'm like, we've got this opportunity to raise money and buy these properties. And we did that, right? I mean, I'm always been, if I give me a good idea, I'm going to learn just enough to get going. And then knowing that a good portion of the learning experience comes from experience. So did that, man. And man, we rock and rolled in the multifamily space from 2012. We started selling off properties in 2018. 2000, I think, actually the last multifamily property we sold probably a year ago, which was actually the first one we bought. So along the way, we decided that we wanted to get into bigger apartment communities. I'm skipping around a little bit, but we ended up quitting the day job. Corinne first, then I second. This was after we, moved in together, bought a house in Springfield, got married. Then the daughter came around, Stella, my beautiful 6.5-year-old now, and we decided, what are we going to do next? Bigger apartment communities. We were like a small fish in an ocean, and the deals didn't pencil for what for my underwriting. And we decided to pivot to self-storage, man.